Think of a successful author. They do not invent new words to write a powerful novel. The same dictionary is available to everyone. What makes the story compelling is arrangement, where tension builds, where pauses happen, what is emphasized, and what is left unsaid. If a new software is released, it may improve workflow. It may provide helpful tools, but it does not replace structure, pacing, or voice. The craft still belongs to the writer. Design works the same way. We all use the same shapes, the same colors, the same grids, the same principles. Today we have advanced software and AI, but good design is not defined by the two. It is defined by how intentional the tool is used. Creativity is not in the interface. It is in the decisions. As powerful as AI is, it remains a tool that requires direction. It can generate images, layouts, and ideas at remarkable speed. It can expand possibilities. It can accelerate exploration. But can speed replace judgment, intention, or taste? The question isn't how fast something can be made. The question is why it's being made at all. Our sense of beauty comes from the way the brain interprets what we see. We find things visually pleasing because they align with how our brains naturally make sense of the world. Whether it's a painting, a website, or a layout, our minds instinctively group elements, notice patterns, sense movement, and seek harmony. We seek balance, contrast, rhythm, and emphasis not because we are taught, but because we are wired to perceive the whole, not just separate pieces. Gestalt psychology explains why we recognize complete structures, not isolated parts. That's why some designs just feel right. The 7 principles of design, balance, contrast, rhythm, movement, emphasis, pattern, unity, variety, reflect how we naturally interpret what we see. They guide attention, shape meaning, and make experiences feel effortless. So how does it all come together? Balance is the arrangement of visual elements so a composition feels stable, harmonious, and visually appealing. Imagine walking into a gallery or staring at a painting online. Something about the composition feels right. Your eyes move naturally across it. Nothing feels too heavy or empty. That's the power of balance. As more elements are added to a composition, maintaining equilibrium becomes a challenge. Too much weight on one side or random placement can make a piece feel chaotic or uncomfortable. Artists and designers use 3 main strategies to maintain harmony: symmetrical balance, radial balance, and asymmetrical balance. Symmetrical balance or bilateral balance occurs when elements are mirrored perfectly on both sides of a central axis, folded in half, and both sides match. Think of butterfly wings. They match perfectly. Think of a bird's wings in flight, or even a checkerboard. Everything is balanced. Symmetry resolves the tension by giving the viewer clarity and structure, creating a sense of calm that feels intentional rather than boring. Radial balance or radial symmetry. Radial balance occurs when elements radiate from a central point, creating circular balance or rotational symmetry. Think of a spinning wheel. By distributing elements thoughtfully around the central point, radial balance guides the eye naturally, creating rhythm and flow, turning a potential static design into a dynamic experience. Though symmetry brings calm and stability, but too much can feel predictable or rigid. The eyes may follow the pattern perfectly, but there is no element of surprise or movement. Even radial designs, though they create focus and movement, Placing everything too rigidly in the center can make a composition feel stiff, trapping the viewer's gaze. That is why we need asymmetrical balance. It achieves equilibrium without centering everything. Unequal size, shapes, and forms are carefully placed to balance visually. Imagine a photograph with the subject off to one side. At first, it might feel unbalanced, but then your eyes find supporting elements and suddenly the composition feels complete. Think of a tree on one side, balanced by rocks and grass on the other. Asymmetrical balance can feel chaotic or unbalanced if not arranged carefully. The viewer's eyes may wander without finding a sense of order. Using tools like the rule of thirds or the golden ratio, asymmetrical balance becomes dynamic and visually engaging. The rule of thirds, what is that? That is when we divide the composition into 9 equal parts using an invisible grid. 3 horizontal sections, 3 vertical sections with 4 hard spots that naturally draw the viewer's eye. The tension of irregularity transforms into visual interest. In the design world, balance ensures that objects are both visually appealing and functional, combining beauty with practicality. Have you ever had a flat tire? That shows you that radial symmetry is not just about aesthetics in design, but it has to be functional. Fans, washing machines rely on circular motion and centrifugal force. Chairs and tables require balance for stability. Otherwise, they can tip, wobble, or perform poorly. Does everything has to be centered in design for proper functionality? Not necessarily. Dashboards follow the rule of thirds for intuitive access. In the UK, steering wheels are typically on the right, and in the US on the left. In most standard passenger vehicles, the steering wheel is designed to be positioned closer to the center of the road, a choice intended to support visibility and spatial awareness. A reminder that symmetry in design is functional, not decorative. What's the takeaway? Balance is essential in art and design for visual harmony, dynamic interest, and functional efficiency. Next time you encounter a painting, a building, or an object, if it doesn't look right or it doesn't work right, could it be that the object or the art is simply not balanced? Contrast is the deliberate placement of opposites. Light against dark, large against small, bold against subtle, is the reason a single red dot on a blank canvas can stop you in its tracks. Artists and designers harness contrast through value, color, scale, line, texture, shape, and space. Contrast thrives in conflict. It creates tension, energy, and drama. In the fine art space, contrast is more than visual interest. It is expression, symbolism, and narrative. Caravaggio's painting, The Calling of Saint Matthew, shows dramatic value contrast, chiaroscuro. The stark light slicing through darkness guides the viewer directly to the central figures, highlighting divine intervention amidst ordinary surroundings. Why does contrast work so well in art? It gives emotional impact. It triggers emotional response from awe to suspense. It gives focus. It forces the eye to see what matters first. It gives a narrative. Opposites in visual elements often mirror opposites in story, morality, or psychology. It's both sensory and conceptual. It appeals to how we see and how we interpret. In applied arts, contrast becomes purpose-driven. Designers use it to structure information, guide attention, and communicate efficiently. Bold headlines against subtle backgrounds. Vibrant call to actions. Buttons in muted interfaces. Scale, color, and spacing to establish hierarchy. What matters most and what can wait? In film, contrast operates on visual and narrative levels. Lighting sculpts mood and tension. For instance, filmmakers use black and white versus color to show flashbacks or time periods. Calm sequences, disrupted by chaos, reflect story's conflict. In the Schindler's List, the girl in the red coat stands out from the black and white monochrome colors, directing the viewer's attention and evoking emotional resonance. Contrast is critical in digital design. It ensures that users can see, understand, and interact with user interfaces. It improves clarity, usability, and accessibility. Number 1, visual contrast helps users read and distinguish content. For instance, when you use value and color, text must stand out against backgrounds for readability. When you use scale, large elements, headings, buttons indicate importance. Smaller elements show secondary information. Number 2, interactive contrast. This shows how elements behave. The state of the buttons and the controls should clearly indicate what happens when you hover, what needs to be in focus, what's active and what's inactive. This helps users know what is clickable and how to interact with the interface. Number 3, temporal contrast guides attention through motion. Animated elements, transitions, pop-ups, feedback, signal action and change. Number 4, accessibility contrast ensures the interface is usable by all. High contrast supports users with visual impairments, color blindness, or low vision. Contrast reduces cognitive load, helping everyone understand and navigate the interface efficiently. When contrast is applied with intention, it commands attention, conveys meaning, and orchestrates experience. Every white space, bold stroke, vibrant hue, and every subtle shift carries purpose. What's the takeaway? Every visual encounter is a conversation between opposites. Contrast is the language of that conversation. It commands our gaze, stirs our emotions, and teaches us how to read the world. In every canvas, in every screen, and in every frame. Amid a sea of visual information, not every element can stand out at once. Emphasis is the principle that guides the eye to what matters the most. It draws attention to a specific visual element or group of elements by creating a focal point, the place where the viewer's eye naturally lands before moving anywhere else. Emphasis gives visual hierarchy, guides perception, and transforms raw elements into intentional communication. At its core, emphasis answers a simple but powerful question. What do you want the viewer to notice first, and why? Designers, artists, create emphasis using deliberate visual strategies. These techniques can work alone or in combination to guide attention and establish importance. There are many ways to create emphasis. Number 1, color. Color is one of the strongest attention-drawing tools. Complementary colors such as red and blue create high contrast and visual tension. Absent color. This is when we remove color from most elements so a single colored element becomes dominant. Number 2, isolation. Isolation separates an element from others. When we create space around an element, the more significance it appears to have. Number 3, contrast. Contrast is the clear difference between elements. Emphasis clarifies what matters by making the emphasized element unmistakable. Light versus dark, large versus small, rough versus smooth, organic versus geometric. Number 4, convergence. Convergence occurs when visual elements point towards a single area. Lines, shapes, or repeated forms guide the eye. The viewer is visually led to the focal point rather than discovering it by chance. Number 5, line, leading lines. Emphasis is also created when lines naturally direct attention. Straight, curved, thick, thin, bold, or broken lines can all act as guides. Leading lines control visual movement and direct focus towards the subject. Number 6, placement. Position guides attention. Center placement often feels dominant and stable. Off-center placement can create emphasis through tension, imbalance, or surprise. Number 7, shape or odd element. Difference creates emphasis. An unusual or unexpected shape among repeated forms stands out immediately. The eye is drawn to what does not belong. Number 8, detail. Detail attracts attention. Areas with more texture, rendering, or refinement feel more important. Line quality, thin, bold, organic, or mechanical, affects emphasis and mood. Number 9, hierarchy. Hierarchy organizes importance. Size, contrast, and dominance establish what is primary, secondary, and tertiary. Subordination reduces less important elements so the main focal point can lead. Hierarchy controls how the viewer reads the composition over time. All of these techniques work together to establish a clear focal point and visual flow. In applied arts and design, emphasis is closely linked to the Gestalt principles, psychological laws that explain how humans naturally organize visual information. People do not see isolated parts first. They see relationships or groups. Effective design begins by observing human behavior, how people see, process, and respond to visual information, then creating solutions that address a problem or communicate a message clearly. Gestalt principles allows designers to align aesthetics with functionality, working with perception rather than against it. While terminologies may vary in how emphasis is applied in visual art or design, the core idea remains the same. Pay attention to the art elements that are seamlessly incorporated into design to create emphasis. This segment will only focus on 7 key principles. Number 1, figure ground. We instinctively separate a subject or a figure from its background. Strong figure ground relationships, color, contrast, texture, or isolation make emphasis immediate. A good example will be emergency exit sign. The symbol is instantly readable because it clearly separates from the background. Number 2, similarity. We group elements that share visual traits such as color, shape, size, or texture. Emphasis is created when one element breaks that similarity. On a website, primary buttons may appear in a bold color while secondary buttons remain gray, signaling what action matters most. Number 3, proximity. Elements placed close together are perceived as related. Separation suggests difference and importance. Menu layouts, for example. Item names and descriptions are grouped closely, while prices are slightly separated to remain readable. This shows emphasis through subordination. Number 4, continuity. The eye naturally follows smooth paths, lines, and directional flows, perceiving them as a part of continuous whole rather than disconnected pieces. Continuity guides attention through a composition by creating visual momentum. The Amazon logo, for example, uses a flowing arrow from A to Z, leading the eye naturally while reinforcing meaning and emphasis through motion and direction. Number 5, closure. The human brain fills in missing information when given minimum visual clues. This is when emphasis is created through subordination, allowing implied forms to emerge. The FedEx logo's arrow exists in the negative space. It is visually subordinate to the letter forms, yet becomes prominent once noticed, a powerful demonstration that less is more. Number 6, common fate. Elements moving or pointing in the same direction are perceived as related. Shared motion or direction strengthens emphasis through unity. Websites' elements scrolling in the same direction create visual flow, guiding attention and reinforcing hierarchy. Number 7, pregnance, known as the law of simplicity. Humans instinctively reduce complex visuals into the simplest possible forms. When emphasis is created by an odd or dominant shape, the brain simplifies the surrounding information. Order, clarity, and simplicity feel more satisfying and readable. Simple logos are more recognizable and memorable than complex ones because they align with the brain's preference for stable, clear forms. Emphasis is not decoration. It is decision-making. It determines what matters, how meaning unfolds, and where attention begins and ends. Artists and designers shape perception with precision. When emphasis is used intentionally, the viewer does not struggle to understand a composition. They are guided through it. In both fine arts and applied arts, strong emphasis transforms visual noise into clarity, turning form into message and attention into understanding. Movement begins with perception. In visual art and design, movement is the illusion of motion, constructed from line, shape, color, value, direction, and composition. Nothing physically moves, yet the eye does. This is the earliest and most fundamental form of movement in visual language. Types of movement. Implied movement suggests action without real motion. It creates energy. It freezes a moment that feels alive. It activates the viewer's imagination. Take the Great Wave of Kanagawa by Hokusai. The curling wave, the diagonal force, the suspended spray, everything points toward impact. The wave hasn't crashed yet, but we feel that it will. In photography, motion blur works the same way, capturing speed and direction inside a still image without anything actually moving. Rhythmic movement. Rhythmic movement is created through repetition. Repeated shapes, repeated colors, repeated lines. These visual patterns guide the eye across the surface, creating tempo, flow, and continuity. In Kandinsky's composition number 8, geometric forms repeat and interact, pulling the eye from one element to the next. Rhythmic movement feels musical, measured, and continuous. Kinetic movement. Kinetic movement is different. Here movement is real. Mobile sculptures. Installation art. Motion responds to air, gravity, and even the viewer. Movement is no longer suggested. it exists in real time. Think of Alexander Calder's sculptures. So what happens when movement is no longer implied but captured? Movement becomes measurable. Before movies were called movies, they were called motion pictures. The challenge was no longer to suggest movement, but how to record it. In 1878, Edward Muybridge changed everything. Using a series of sequential photographs, he captured a galloping horse, breaking motion into individual moments. This experiment proved three things. Number one, movement can be analyzed frame by frame. Number two, movement is not continuous, but it's a sequence. Number three, still images viewed in order create the illusion of motion. Visual history would never be the same. Muybridge's work influenced inventors like Thomas Edison and William Kennedy Laurie Dixon. Together they developed kinetoscope. Soon after, the Lumiere brothers introduced cinematography. For the first time, movement wasn't imagined, it was projected. Cinema was born. Animation evolved from the same principle. Sequential still images create the illusion of motion. Movement is not motion, it is perception over time. In design, movement is not decoration, it is intentional. It explains, it guides, it responds. Animation defines how movement functions inside design systems. Movement adds clarity, emotion, engagement. It shapes how information is understood and how users feel. Motion graphics is designed to influence decisions, increase attention, and improve retention. In digital spaces where attention is fragile and time is limited, movement directs focus. In interaction design, motion supports micro-interactions in apps and websites, call-to-action animations, warnings, feedbacks, and transitions. Movement communicates what just happened, what's happening now, and what happens next. In industrial design, movement defines function. Watches, gears, clocks, fans, wheels. Here, movement is no longer symbolic. It is essential to operation. Movement begins as an illusion, evolves into recorded time, and becomes purposeful function, from a frozen wave to sequential photographs to animated interfaces and machines. Movement is how visual ideas come alive. It's the tiles on the floor, the windows on a building, the lines in a book. Pattern is the silent language that guides how we see the world. Pattern appears wherever line, shape, color, value, texture, or form repeat in an organized way. It is the first thing the eye reads. It whispers, "You can understand the world." In Renaissance architecture, it's unmistakable. Evenly spaced columns and repeated arches teaches us trust through repetition. Pattern exists on the surface, but as the eye recognizes repetition, it begins to perceive space, even before we consciously understand it. Perspective as a pattern. Depth is pattern extended into distance. Perspective is pattern applied to three dimensions, a bridge between sight and feeling. Linear perspective, or pattern of direction. In Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, converging ceiling lines, walls, and table edges guide the eye to the center. Repetition creates expectation. It is a visual contract that says, follow the lines and trust the space. Scale and proportion, or pattern of size. In Raphael's The School of Athens, figures diminish as they recede. Distance in this case is measured, not guessed. Scale becomes a language of depth. Closer objects dominate, and distant objects invite humility. Overlapping or pattern of layers. Giotto's frescoes use overlapping figures to define foreground, middle ground, and background. The eye reads the hierarchy intuitively. Atmospheric perspective or pattern of clarity. Mountains fade into bluish haze. Contrast softens, edges dissolve. This is not randomness. It is distance encoded in perception. Sfumato, pattern without edges. Look at Leonardo's Mona Lisa. Softens the hard lines around forms. Light and shadow flow seamlessly. There are no borders, only transitions. It teaches the eye to perceive subtly, to feel depth rather than measure it. Perspective follows rules, and those rules are patterns. And yet the most compelling spaces are those where certainty fades into suggestion. What we learn from art, we live in design. In the applied arts and in the design world, pattern is not just decoration. It organizes the spaces and objects we interact with every day. Architecture, Renaissance buildings guide movement through repeating columns, diminishing scale, and controlled sightlines. These spatial patterns do not dictate where to walk. They invite exploration. Pattern trains the body as much as the eye. In visual design and digital design, modern interfaces continue these lessons. Grids create order. Hierarchy controls attention. Depth kills, overlaps. Shadows blur, separate elements. Blur effects echo sfumato, softening edges and creating subtle layers. Users trust what the eye can predict, often before reading a single word. In industrial design and product design, everyday objects rely on pattern system, repeated components, consistent spacing, and predictable proportions. In applied arts and design, pattern and perspective are more than visual principles. They shape how we move, interact, and experience the world. From Renaissance architecture, painted illusion, from interfaces to everyday objects, we don't see patterns. We move through them, we trust them, and often without knowing, they shape the way we think, feel, and exist. Rhythm. We notice it before we even move. On the street, in the room, even on a staircase. Some beats are short and sharp, creating the staccato effect. Footsteps, tiles, blinking lights. Some flows are long and smooth, creating the legato effect. A winding road, a flowing river, a curved hallway. Rhythm shows up when shapes, lines, colors, or textures repeat. The mind notices, the body anticipates. It's instinctive. It's almost like music you can see. Van Gogh's staring eyes, swirling brushstrokes create short, live pauses. Your eyes jumps across the sky. Monet's water lilies. Flowing curves of water and plants guide your eyes across the canvas. MC Usher's tessellations. Repeated shapes keep the eye alert, moving across the pattern. Types of rhythm. Regular rhythm, steady and predictable like repeated dots or brushstrokes. Alternating rhythm, back and forth pauses like waves or repeated shapes. Progressive rhythm, rising or falling, suggesting growth or motion. Flowing rhythm or legato, smooth curves, guiding the eye like a melody. At this stage, rhythm is quiet potential. Notice it and it fills art with energy, direction, and emotion. Rhythm works because it balances energy and ease. The best visuals feel alive. They move you, guide you, and hold your attention. Rhythm shapes spaces and objects that we use every day. In architecture, buildings guide movement by repeating columns or railings. And in visual and digital design, websites and apps use rhythm too. Buttons, icons, repeated elements, smooth scroll and shadows, transitions. Users follow these instinctively because rhythm sets pace, hierarchy, and engagement. In industrial design, everyday objects rely on rhythm, buttons, textures, handles, curved surfaces and edges, gradual scaling, sequencing, and layering. Patterns bring reliability in this case. Together, this creates experiences that feel natural, intuitive, and satisfying to the user. Final thought. Rhythm is the music of the visual world. Short beats bring energy. Smooth flows bring calm. Rising and falling shapes bring tension and release. Soft transitions add warmth. From Van Gogh's skies to Monet's flowing water to apps, staircases, and everyday objects, we just don't see rhythm, we feel it, we move with it, we live with it. Rhythm guides every glance, every step, every moment around us. Unity and variety. Complete, incomplete, calm, restless, it all comes down to one thing: unity. This invisible bond that turns fragments into a whole. Unity emerges when line shapes, color, texture, and form interact with intention. It is the quiet rhythm that convinces us our composition is complete, that nothing is accidental and nothing is missing. Consider Mondrian's abstract grids, black lines, primary colors, perfect restraint. Each element is deliberate through repetition and proportion. Unity takes many forms. Number 1, structural unity. This is where scale, proportion, and orientation repeats. Number 2, tonal unity. This is where consistent hues, saturation, or textures establish mood. Number 3, spatial unity. This is where layering, perspective, and framing create coherence. Unity is the silent guide. It tells the observer this is whole, this belongs together. Without it, even the boldest composition begins to fracture. Let's look at variety. We know that unity provides the foundation, but variety gives it life. Too much sameness becomes static. Variety introduces tension, movement, and curiosity. It disrupts without destroying, it energizes without overwhelming. In Picasso's Cubist composition, geometry repeats but never exactly. Angles shifts, proportions change, forms overlap. The result is variety, visual intrigue held together by structure. In design, the same balance appears in modular systems. Repeated forms that vary in height, rotation, or arrangement. Consistency anchors the experience. In digital design, Apple interfaces rely on this same dialogue. Consistent typography and palette establish clarity, while gradients and shadows and motion introduce depth and delight. In the sculptural work of Barbara Hepworth, organic forms repeat, but each one shifts subtly in size and curvature. The viewer moves closer, then around, then back again. Cohesion remains, but discovery unfolds. In urban spaces, pathways and materials create unity, while textures, plantings, and elevation changes invite discovery. In architecture, unity appears through consistent material grids and proportions, as we see in the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. Variety emerges through light and changes in elevation. The result is space that feels organized, yet dynamic. In digital experiences, unity creates clarity, grids, typography, icons, controls. Variety appears quietly through animation, color shifts, and responsive feedback. What's the takeaway? Unity and variety shape how we perceive the world. Unity provides trust, clarity, and cohesion. Variety brings energy, curiosity, and engagement. From Mandarin scripts to digital interfaces, we don't just see form, we experience connection and difference. Unity and variety are the silent framework guiding every glance, every step, and every moment of attention. Creativity does not begin or end with a tool or a prompt. Whether you're sketching on paper, arranging elements in Photoshop, or experimenting with AI, deciding what deserves emphasis, where balance should shift, and how tension should resolve, that remains a human judgment. The 7 principles of design and art give you a compass. They help you see what to add, what to subtract, what to refine, so you are not blown away by every suggestion or trend. Balance, contrast, rhythm, unity, variety, emphasis, and movement guide your decisions and keep your work intentional. Whether you're working with pencil, paint, digital software, or AI, just as an author arranges familiar words into a story that feels unique, a designer arranges familiar visual elements into an experience that feels deliberate. Originality is not about inventing new pieces. It's about composing known elements with clarity and purpose. Tools can assist the process, but you as an individual, you still shape the outcome. The tool, traditional or digital, expands what is possible, but the human still defines what is meaningful. Technology evolves, but principles endure.
If you've enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll love this one. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video.